Step inside a school sports hall in the early 1960s, and the first thing you notice is the sound. Shoes echoing on polished floors, a whistle cutting the air, rows of children standing straight in stiff kit, waiting. No chatter, no questions, just expectation. Back then, this was ordinary, accepted, barely remarked upon. Today, it would cause raised eyebrows and urgent conversations. What once passed as routine would now feel astonishingly harsh. Most people have forgotten just how extreme some of these lessons were, because at the time, no one stopped to think it was how school worked then anyway. To understand why those lessons felt so uncompromising, you have to remember the Britain that shaped them. The 1960s classroom was still living in the long shadow of the war. Many teachers had grown up during shortages, evacuations, and strict routines, and they believed childhood was preparation, not a pause. Physical education reflected that belief completely. These lessons were never designed to be fun in the modern sense. They were about order, posture, and learning to endure without complaint. Straight lines mattered. Timing mattered. Doing exactly as you were told mattered most of all. Resources were basic, halls were cold, and improvisation was common, but nobody saw this as a problem. Hardness was the point. There was also a strong sense that schools were helping rebuild the nation itself. Strong bodies were linked to strong character, and strong character was seen as essential for Britain's future. Today, we talk about confidence, choice, and well-being. Back then, the aim was toughness and conformity. Seen through that lens, those strict lessons weren't cruelty. They were conviction. And that mindset explains everything that followed. It framed how authority felt, how effort was judged, and why no one expected comfort at school then either. The routines themselves were simple, but unyielding. You'd line up shoulder to shoulder, eyes forward, waiting for the signal to begin. A sharp command echoed around the cold hall, shoes squeaking as everyone moved at once. Arms up, bend, stretch, turn, all together, all silent. This was considered completely normal. There was no warm-up chat, no explanation of why you were doing any of it. You copied what you were shown and kept going until told to stop. If you fell behind, the lesson didn't pause. No one questioned it at the time, because questioning simply wasn't part of school life. Instruction was firm, brief, and final. Every school did some version of this. Timed routines filled the lesson. Each movement counted, each position corrected. Standing still for long stretches was as much part of the experience as moving. The floor felt hard under thin shoes, the air sharp on bare arms, but you learned not to react. Showing discomfort achieved nothing. Ability made little difference. Whether sport came naturally or not, everyone followed the same pattern at the same pace. There were no alternatives, no quiet corners, no adjustments. Fairness meant sameness. Teachers believed this was how resilience was built. Looking back, it's startling how much was expected without a single question being asked of the children themselves. Feelings were private things, kept for home. At school, especially in those lessons, you were measured by how well you complied. It's only now, with softer voices and warmer spaces, that we realize how rigid those routines really were, and how deeply they shaped a generation's understanding of effort, authority, and silence. For many watching now, these memories resurface with surprising clarity, reminding us how normal it felt then, and how distant that world seems today by modern standards alone now. No one sat out. That was the unspoken rule. When the lesson began, everyone joined in, whether they felt ready or not. There were no quiet words at the side, no adjustments made behind the scenes. The pace was set, and you matched it, or tried to. Fairness meant that everyone was treated exactly the same. For some, this created a strange sense of pride. You pushed through, kept up, proved something to yourself without ever saying it aloud. For others, it was less comfortable. Awkwardness, stiffness, or uncertainty were swallowed and carried quietly. You learned early not to draw attention to yourself. Teachers rarely asked how anyone was coping, not because they were unkind, but because the ideas simply didn't belong in that world. The lesson moved on, the whistle blew, and you followed. Back then, this was called character building. It was believed to prepare you for life beyond the school gates, where excuses were few and expectations firm. Today, we might see those moments through a different lens entirely. But for those who lived it, the memory remains complicated, woven from endurance, obedience, and the quiet knowledge that everyone around you was going through the same thing together. What those lessons left behind is harder to define. On one hand, they taught endurance, routine, and a sense that you finished what you started. You learned to move as a group, to wait your turn, to keep going even when something felt uncomfortable. Many people still carry that quiet toughness with them today. But there was another side too. Feelings were rarely acknowledged. Struggles went unnoticed, not out of neglect, but because the language for them barely existed. You didn't complain, you just got on with it, because everyone else did. Looking back now, it's possible to hold both truths at once. Those lessons shaped confidence for some, silence for others, and resilience for almost everyone. They belong to a time with different expectations, priorities, and an older understanding of childhood. Remembering them isn't about praise or criticism. It's about recognizing how much has changed over the years. Step into a school hall today, and the contrast is striking. The floors are warmer, voices softer, choices offered rather than demanded. Lessons now speak of confidence, enjoyment, and care, where once there was certainty and silence. It's tempting to argue over which version was better, but that misses the point. Each reflected the Britain that created it. The older routines grew from rebuilding, order, and endurance. Today's approach grows from listening and protection. We didn't just change how children move, we changed how we understand childhood authority and what growing up is meant to feel like in Britain today. For more of these unbelievable memories, tap the video on your screen. The 1970s stories are something else. Don't forget to subscribe.